Hi there, this is Jason Eagle, your natural health authority for strategic healing, and we're going to talk, let me see if it comes in better like that. Okay, we're going to talk about something that, follow me on this one. This is the rabbit hole on intuition. Okay, intuition. So we can talk about a couple different things. Most people know what I'm talking about when you're talking about intuition, which is, some people know it as like their head brain. They got this intuition. I intuit something. Whether it means I have a good feeling about something and I do it and it pans out good, or I have a bad feeling about something and I don't do it and it pans out good, or I have a good feeling about something and I do the opposite and it turns out bad, or I have a bad feeling about something and I do it and it turns out good. So there's all these different weird things that we can kind of go, okay, well, first of all, intuition, a lot of people talk about and report about where they feel it. But, you know, whether we talk about what's called the head brain or what we talk about what's called the gut brain, okay? And back to that statement before, I kind of line it up with what Paul said. Paul said, you know, the things that I don't want to do, I do. The things that I do want to do, I don't do. Like, I'm not in control of this. At my best, I'm in control of it, but I'm really not in control of it. But if I'm in the right relationship, it all leads to my good anyways. All right, well, I know this is a little fantangled, but okay. So it's well established that we know that we got a head brain. We got thoughts in our brain, and we can kind of feel that the thoughts come there. Then it's well established that we do have a lot of neurological connections in what they call the gut brain, which is the gut ecology, which is actually the whole symbiotic relationships of what you call the microbiome, which is that's you, but you relationship with all of these different life forms, literally. And so, is there a possibility that our own intuition is sometimes influenced by something else? And spiritually, you would kind of say, well, is it like, am I having a spiritual oppression, or am I having, okay. That being said, let's talk about this just realistically about health. Is there anything that could my intuition be worked upon? Like a muscle, like I want to grow this bicep and make it work, make my intuition work better? And why would I want to do that? Well, because first of all, you may be established that there's something that's affecting your literally intuition at certain levels. And so, because intuition leads into, like we talked about, a choice, okay? So is there something within this choice that's being influenced by something else? Okay, and that's where we get into, like, is there a possibility, just on a biological level, that infection is something that could be affecting how you're reporting yourself and how you are behaving, per se? I don't do what I want to do, and I do what I don't want to do. Good example is you know, Christmas time comes around, and you've noticed that you need to stop eating the sugars, right? And you tell yourself, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, but you get there with them and you do it, all right? And then you beat up on yourself, right? Let's get into the real biology of some of these things. Okay, so for instance, we get into, infection. So it's well known that people can have bacterial infection that affects their brain, or bacterial infection that affects their gut. We know that there's a very large establishment of dysbiosis with things like bipolarism, with things that are true physiologic brain, manic depression, or even just depression. We know that the gut has a lot to do with that. And it's not just the gut, it's what's growing in the body. We also know that there's other, what we could call negative influences that affect choice, and that would be like things like food addictions. There's no doubt that drinking pop is a drug. There's no doubt that eating wheat, and it's not just wheat, it's the cakes, the cookies, it's the high carbohydrates, it's your body especially the way that they're modified the way that they are right now, is they're pushing the same buttons as opiate addiction, as methamphetamine, literally. So it's pushing these buttons. So are these things that I'm being jerked around like a puppet, and even my own intuition is not getting me to do? Is there something that I could do to just kind of clean that mess up? Well, let's talk about that. Yeah, physiologic. There is. If we get into literally infection, meaning that I'm living in me and I've got my own thoughts. But what if there's hijackers and other things living in you, and there are other life forms, everything from bacterial to other pathogens to higher levels of parasites. You got some worms, and this is very common. We think in America it's not common, but it's more common. A person says they've got C. diff or MRSA, or think about it. It's some other being growing, living and thinking and projecting in your body. And we know that there are certain bacterial, or not necessarily bacterial, but parasitic. Like, I've heard stories that of foxes. This is well known that foxes get a particular type of worm infection in their brain, but it comes because it's a snail that lands on a nut that a squirrel eats, and a squirrel who normally hides away from foxes, when they get infected, this worm works its way through to its brain and makes it go like a zombie and stand out in the middle of the field, in the middle of the day, and all of its buddies, get out of there, it's going to get you. And boom, he gets eaten because it's really trying to get in. There's a story about crabs, certain crabs that get this infection, and the males then develop this brood hatch that starts to turn their organs into like a womb, and they actually take on the behavior, and like the females, when they release eggs, they lay on their back and they go bloop, and they put the males that are infected do that behavior because they're squirting out, both the males and the females are squirting out this infected form. So what does it mean? There's things that are turning you into a zombie. There is. And so let's start working on them, okay? And the big thing is if it's in the blood. So even the Chinese talk about this as bad blood. And for that you do cupping. And if you don't think cupping works, like look at Michael Phelps. They'll tell you, that black came out of me. And I know medically you can kind of argue it. Well, look into it. It's not harmful. It doesn't hurt you. And it literally pulls black blood out of you. Okay? And we get into bacterial pathogens. Okay? It's always good for people to get on things like Allicidin or the Cardio-ND. They're high levels of garlic. Garlic is just like, okay, funny that garlic keeps the vampire away, the vampire bat. These things that is in our society. They have, the wives' tales even have a reason behind them. And some truth. The parasites, I think it's always good to look at. I like the ParaStat for the intestinal worms, the even amoebic type of stuff. And the Parasite is typically for the liver flukes and the worms. And get tested. And if you don't want to get tested, it's always a good idea to just kind of like, a lot of cultures have always, like the Indians and so many other cultures have religiously on a year-by-year basis, or a couple times a year, they'll do a parasite program. They'll do this, and because we're animals, your animals get it, and you're an animal, okay? Then we get into some of the other things, which is, we know that the insulin resistance is the driving force of inflammation. Well, food addictions, and that's what it is. It comes in, we're addicted to like go and have those sweets because it pulls the trigger of that drug, like the monkey in the cage, and you get the shock, but yet you kind of like the shock because you're used to the juice that it gives you. So people should play with this. Everyone should try this, really. You can't say you don't have a problem with gluten unless you've tried to go gluten-free. You can't say that you don't have a problem with sugar unless you've gone low carb and taken just some of the known factors out. Clean up the body. Again, slow bowels. You got dark stuff sitting. If you got old fetid material that's sitting in you too long, like it's a scary basement. And so clean up the basement. That's the also doing like enemas and colonics. It'll clean the house out, clean the basement out. Then we get also into a level of, these are all negative influences, things that could be leaching onto your intuition, and so you don't even make the choices that are right for you. right now. Okay? And then we get into other things like toxic environments. That is literally, you're working too hard, go to the beach, go to the woods. You've been telling everybody this job's killing me. Well, get at it, because you could die right now, right? This in relationship is, I say what you got to say, be told what you got to be told, listen up, and get with it or get out, because it's time. And all of these things, if we can start working on these things, and I have, you can start getting back to where, it comes out of the eyes and the veil comes off, and you can start to see that you can make these better choices, that you're being steered all over the place. But when you start to see what's really important in your life, you're able to really get stronger, and you're really able to help other people, and you're able to steer your own ship and really be able to weed out, am I really doing this because I want to do this? And what does my intention have to do with my intuition? And it's healing even your intuition. And there's physical, even though we call intuition this etheric thing, show me your intuition. It lives in the body of this. And if it's a sick body, then the intuition or your gut feelings can be used against you. Or you're even doing it against you and just don't even know it. That's most of it. Most of us is we can't forgive ourselves, or we can't extract ourselves. We can't see ourselves as like, I could be all right without them or with them. Whatever the case may be. Is it something else that's living and having its agenda within inside you? Get these things out and you'll start to see. So, till next time.